Brendan O'Shea, iPhoneographer, photographer. Welcome back to another episode.
Hi Richie, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
It's great to see you, Brendan, and to hear from you. We first met a good few years ago at Glenn Mulcahy's Mojo Fest, and we met in the context. That's it, exactly. We met in the context of iPhoneography, and it's amazing. It's hard to believe you had it straight off. Is it 5 years ago already? That's incredible.
5 years, yeah, that we would have met at the end of March 2015 at
almost to the day.
MojoCon, as it was. Yeah.
That's incredible. And actually, we sat in your living room just in front of your lovely photo behind you. A few years ago, and we were talking about your shot on iPhone campaign and how you ended up having a photograph being featured on billboards all over the world and on the back of the New Yorker. And that was really incredible experience. And we'll link below so people can go back to that video.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. It's hard to think that that's 5 years ago that all of that coincided, started in March, and it was a magical experience at the time to be following and finding out what city was it, the photograph was on a billboard, and it opened up so many opportunities for me since then. Yeah.
It's incredible. And when we last spoke, I remember you explaining how you used to have a Nikon DSLR and it was kind of gathering dust. And when the iPhone came out, you started to use the iPhone more and more.
Yeah, I still have real cameras that are gathering dust, and I'm thinking at the moment whether I should get them out of the drawer, which is just to my left here. But I find that I'm still shooting mainly using the iPhone, and I many smartphones that I would use. I think it's much more enjoyable, it's much more immediate, and I just enjoy the process more than working with heavy DSLRs or mirrorless cameras as well. But my go-to camera is still the iPhone.
And how are you finding things at the moment? Maybe just for a little bit of context, tell us where you are and what your day job is.
Yeah, so I'm here in Cork, and my day job normally is in University College Cork. I'm the head of teacher training and development in UCC. And that on March the 12th, we had to move everything online. So we're now up and running, delivering all our courses and programs online. So that's taking up my full days, and I'm probably working more now from home than I would have been when I was on campus. Things just seem to be taking much longer. Also, like I'm at home with my wife and 2 kids, and that if I can block out what's going on in the larger, broader context and just deal with what's happening in my immediate surroundings, there's a beautiful simplicity to things at the moment, and it's very nice. We're very, very, very fortunate that to be able to experience it like that at the moment, and hoping that it will continue. My parents live quite close, so on a day-to-day basis, my main concern is to take care of them, and thankfully at the moment they're doing well as well. They're in their mid-80s, they have underlying health conditions and that, but they're doing okay.
That's great to hear. It's bizarre that when we first spoke, or when we did our last interview, it was all about photography, but the world has changed now in a very different direction, and it's very interesting. Thank you for sharing your own experience recently in the context of this emergency. And as a question, how would you feel going into the future? What kind of lessons have been learnt by the university and by you within your own work that you would maybe say, you know what, could we do these things or some of these things into the future to perhaps improve quality of life? I'm assuming, has quality of life improved to a certain extent if you can spend more time with the family?
I think definitely so. Like I was just saying to my wife just there now, that we don't spend as much time running and racing, bringing the 2 kids to their after school activities. So there's no dealing with traffic. There's no dealing with cranky father or cranky kids, mainly cranky father. So like that makes it quite easy. Go back to what you're asking about in terms of what we're doing differently. Like as I said, on March the 12th, we were told in the morning that we were finished on that day. And we immediately had to convert our, classroom-based delivery onto online. And that when people experience in adversity, you learn the character and that. And I think that it's commendable how the whole university and education at large has turned around things and shifted everything online and been able to continue to deliver and the lectures and content for students. I think that would have been unimaginable if it was not in the current scenario. I think people there wouldn't have been the buy-in, there wouldn't have been the cooperation, and I think that there's a culture of possible has emerged just from our context in education. Looking for me in terms of photography, that I'm a fantastic procrastinator, and my New Year's resolution for the past 2 years was to get into video and get into video editing. And again, through necessity, that I had to do a video because I would like that people confuse an interest in technology with expertise in technology in my job. And I was asked to put together a video for work, and with the fantastic help of Glenn, Mr. Mojafest himself, that I did an hour, maybe 2 hour tutorial with him last Thursday on how to use LumaFusion, and I was able to put a video together, which I'm pleased with it, and something that I wanted to get more into. So that's kind of a step in a different direction for me to get into video and to get into editing, because it's something that I always wanted to do. So this has given me the opportunity to go down that route.
And how are you finding using LumaFusion, and what apps and phones are you using for the recording side of things?
Okay, so as you can see with my glasses, my eyesight is pretty bad, and that I have found that the editing, well, I do everything on the phone in terms of photography, shooting and editing with Snapseed, and I'm very familiar with that. I found using LumaFusion, unless I mirrored it to the Mac or mirrored it to the TV, I found it really difficult to manage all the sliding and pressing and that, and just to, the editing that you need to do for videoing. So I found that a little bit challenging in terms of the size, but I found it quite intuitive, quite easy to use. And it's something that I've enjoyed. I think that I'll get more into it, but I definitely maybe we'll have to make a decision to get an iPad or continue using the mirroring to the desktop or the TV.
It's funny, actually, the mirroring I found to be very useful. Like, I've been using the iPad to edit these interviews recently. I sometimes use my phone, and I sometimes use the iPad. And it's funny, actually, Glenn asked me recently, he said, but are you not all using larger cameras? And it was a funny thing that I started off with my phone. But then I discovered there was partly a reputational thing, that if you turned up somewhere with your phone, certainly back in 2015, people may have looked at you a little bit awkwardly. That's largely changing, and I think this whole experience is going to change that whole reputation to a whole other level as well. But the advantage I found with the bigger cameras is mainly in the battery and the memory. But with Skype and recording like this, like the last time we did an interview in that room, I was sitting there beside you, and I had to drive to Cork. And it was a pleasure to drive to Cork, and I really appreciate you welcoming me down into your home and making the time available. But now we're using Skype, and to me that's quite incredible. It's quite a game changer. And then to think that we can edit this stuff on our phones and we can beam it out, it really, really exemplifies what a lot of us were thinking about or even doing in 2015. But now everyone is kind of forced into it, as you've alluded to.
Yeah. People are jumping on and realizing that it's practical, and it just makes far more sense,
Absolutely. And in terms of your own photography, around New Year's, the last 2 years, I've noticed you sharing some great historic content. I kind of got the impression that maybe you were delving into the archives and finding your favorite pictures. Would you like to talk a little bit through that, and then how at the moment you've had to rely perhaps on your archives or not? How are you getting your content these days?
Okay, so like initially when this started, like I didn't make a conscious decision not to document it and that, but I suppose as a street photographer, very often that I'm trying to capturing moments of other people's experiences, and I found that with this whole emergency with the COVID-19, that it was a universal experience that we're all having, and I didn't find it interesting. Like when I was walking around Cork City before the lockdown came, completely, I didn't find it that interesting to photograph, street scenes which were, pretty much deserted and, kind of people, destitute and out and about, or just kind of, I didn't find anything there curious to photograph. I am looking back through the archives, and there's a great sense of, like, I'm a very nostalgic person at best of times, but at the moment when I'm looking back and seeing the places that I traveled to before, and there's kind of a sadness of a time lost, and thinking about, will we get back to where you can hop on a plane and travel to the other side of the world. with frequency like I used to have before.
Because you had a great Asian connection in your photography as well.
I was due to travel to Japan and Korea on March the 26th, and like we cancelled that. I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks out from it, because at the time the outbreak in Korea particularly was quite bad. And at that time, even though I was following the story quite closely, I didn't think it would be a case that things would get worse here in Ireland, but they have done. So yeah, and there would have been trips then planned for the summer again, and all of those are no, probably won't happen. And it's just an adjustment for that. But again, like, we're extremely fortunate, because at the moment health is wealth, and if you have that, that's all that matters, like that. But going back to you asking me about the at the end of the year, usually I do kind of a review, and it's a very frustrating review, because you get to see that you didn't really get that many great shots in the year, and as you'd hope through, and going through and trying to select 12. Like I remember reading, I can't remember who said it, but like that at the end of in a given year, if you've got 12 good photographs, it's a success, and if you've got one photograph that stands out, it's a major success. And yeah, I like to do it. It's a nice way of just kind of documenting the year and beginning to think about looking forward to the year that's coming, and that. And I had been doing it through the years on Flickr, but Flickr died, or has died, or has been dying a slow death. So I've moved it onto Instagram now when I do it, and that. So yeah, we're into April at the moment, and have maybe some photographs that I've taken that might be good for the year, but trying to think, that photographs around the house. Well, actually, one of the things that I'm working on at the moment is, kind of a series of photographs of just, ordinary things that you find around the house and the daily experience, and trying to see how we can see differently of the things that we're seeing with frequency on a day-to-day basis, because, trying to challenge myself with that. Particularly because I'm moving towards, in I think April 25th, I'll be doing an online photography workshop with the Gallery of Photography.
Wow.
And I'm doing it for charity, so that it will be, whoever comes onto it will be make a donation to the ISPCC.
And, wow, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so they were asking me to do something, and I just thought, that at the moment it's that I'm still in work. One of the lucky ones who didn't lose my job at that, so I'm salaried, and I just thought of it like the ISPCC is something which is close to my heart, and it makes me very sad to think of children at the moment who are, like the idea that we're stuck at home isn't really true, because like we can kind of go to bed and get up at our leisure, we can sit on the couch and watch Netflix all day, we can eat our favorite food and that. But like for kids and that who are in abusive environments at home, it must be horrific. And I just thought, maybe if it's going to do something like that, just give something, for a good cause, to do it like that.
That's awesome. Brendan, thank you very much for your time today. Before we sign off, I'm going to link below to that workshop. I strongly encourage people to participate. So for now, just as maybe a closing piece, what kind of technologies or projects are you envisaging focusing on the photography side in the coming months?
Okay, so I think what I'll be focusing on the next couple of weeks is getting that online workshop up and running. Going to continue working on video editing, doing a little bit every day to try to see, can I develop some competency in editing video. And I'm not sure, nobody's got any certainty at the moment how long this thing is going to last. But one of the things that I had been working on over the past number of years is putting together a series of iPhone photographs from Tokyo, because I've been shooting iPhone in Tokyo since 2012, and I think it would be nice at this stage to kind of bring it all together in a book form.
Oh wow!
So that's the plan.
Awesome. Well, I'm delighted to see you and hear you being well, and your family, and
likewise.
I wish you continued good fortunes, and I'm excited to keep an eye on the various projects you have going outside of the day job. I don't know where you get the energy from. It's very impressive.
Thanks, Richie. Thank you. And it's been good to see you, and hopefully we'll meet up when all of this is over.
Awesome.
And let's stay strong and positive about it.
I can't wait, because we're supposed to be in London around these days, actually, which is kind of unfortunate. But another shout out to Glenn, and keep an eye on Mojo Fest. And indeed, actually, he's collaborating with the Filmic and the Lima Fusion guys to have
That's
a kind
right.
of an
Yeah,
online project. So
yeah.
that'll be interesting. I'll link below to that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I've signed up for that, so that's one of the
Awesome.
other things that I'll be looking forward to as well.
Fantastic.
Good
Well,
stuff.
Brendan, thanks so much for your time.
You're a star. Thank you very much, Richie.
Awesome. And we'll chat to you soon.